The Philosopher's Stone. Welcome, traveler of shadow and flame, to the myth of the fallen ones. My name is Elnad El Kasmenaay, and together we walk the path that remembers itself, the descent through the chambers of the soul, where myth and psychology share one breath. Here, we do not chase spectacle or superstition. We study the sacred mechanics of being. Each word is a flame offered to the ancient work, to restore the dialogue between the visible and the invisible. In this episode, we speak of the most guarded symbol of all, the Philosopher's Stone. For centuries, it has been called by many names: the Stone of Wisdom, the Elixir of Life, the goal of the great work. But beneath the myths and metals, the stone was never a thing to be held. It was a condition to be realized. The stone is what remains when the human spirit has reconciled its own divisions, when heaven and earth, mind and matter, self and soul remember they were never apart. The alchemists gave their lives to this mystery. Kings died for it, poets dreamed of it, mystics hid its trace behind riddles. Yet the stone itself is not lost. It hides in plain sight, disguised as what you have always been searching for. It is not found in laboratories, but in your willingness to endure the fire until the fire itself recognizes you. So listen closely. What we call stone is not mineral. It is mind refined into light, the consciousness made whole. To understand it is to remember the oldest secret, that the universe itself is a mirror of the human heart, and the heart, if purified, can become the mirror of the divine. 1. Beyond myth, the birth of the Philosopher's Stone. The story of the stone begins long before glass alembics and dusty manuscripts. It begins when the first human lifted their gaze to the stars and felt without words that the fire above and the fire within were the same flame. The universe was not a collection of objects then. It was a living presence, and every transformation, lightning striking, metal glowing, water boiling, was an act of communication between the visible and the invisible. The first alchemists were not chemists. They were priests of transformation. In Egypt, the black land of Chem, they learned that creation itself was a process of dying and being reborn, Osiris dismembered and reassembled, the Nile withdrawing and returning, the seed rotting before it could sprout. Life did not resist decay, it collaborated with it. Out of that revelation, alchemy was born, a theology of fire, a hymn written in the language of reaction and renewal. The Philosopher's Stone emerged as the symbol of this total reconciliation. A vision of matter so pure it became spirit, and of spirit so embodied it became matter. It was the reconciliation of all that was torn apart by the fall. To the uninitiated, the stone was treasure. To the wise, it was the map back to wholeness. In the temples of Heliopolis and the schools of Alexandria, masters taught that every metal, every body, every thought was a stage of the same universal process. Everything yearned for perfection, not the moral perfection of a code, but the ontological perfection of harmony. Lead longed for gold, ignorance longed for wisdom, chaos longed for order. The stone was the end of that longing, the moment when the journey itself became the destination. Every myth that survived into the Hermetic tradition carries the same signature. Prometheus, stealing fire, is the soul awakening to its own power of illumination. The phoenix rising from its ashes is the ego dying to become essence. Even the Garden of Eden hides the formula: the serpent, the tree, the forbidden knowledge. The alchemist reads these stories not as sins or miracles, but as operations of the great work, the descent of divinity into form and its return through consciousness. Thus, the stone was born, not from greed, but from longing, not from superstition, but from insight. It represented the conviction that the human being was not an accident of nature, but the vessel of nature's own awakening. As man perfects himself, wrote the old masters, so too does God remember his image. The stone, then, was the divine mirror polished by human hands, an emblem of collaboration between creator and creation. It was never a mineral. It was the purified consciousness that realizes, I and the world are one act of becoming. 2. Jung and the Stone of Wholeness. When Jung opened the yellowed volumes of the alchemists, he recognized their diagrams, not as chemical recipes, but as the anatomy of the human soul. He saw that what the adepts called sulfur, mercury, and salt were not elements but energies of the psyche, passion, reflection, and form. Their furnaces were metaphors for transformation under pressure. Their metals were emotions, instincts, and ideas undergoing refinement. In dreams of the 20th century, Jung saw the same imagery return: vessels, flames, kings and queens in union, the appearance of a radiant child. He understood that the unconscious still spoke the alchemical language because it was the language of transformation itself. The stone, in modern terms, was the self, the organizing principle that integrates the fragments of personality into one living whole. To reach the stone, Jung taught, one must journey through the shadow, through the neglected, the feared, the repressed. The stone is not won by denial, it is born from inclusion. Just as the alchemist could not skip the nigredo, the seeker cannot bypass suffering. The blackening comes first, the dissolution of the false image. Only then can the whitening of insight and the reddening of union follow. He described individuation as an unfolding mystery, not a linear achievement. It does not end in perfection, but in authenticity, the state where nothing is disowned. The ego becomes transparent, serving rather than ruling. The opposites that once tore the psyche apart now enter dialogue, masculine and feminine, logic and intuition, life and death. In that dialogue, a third thing appears, a still center, luminous and incorruptible. This, Jung said, is the self, the inner stone. What fascinated him most was that this pattern of transformation appeared everywhere, in myths, in chemistry, in art, in religion, and in dreams. It was as if the universe itself were a vast alchemical laboratory and the human soul its finest experiment. The psyche, like lead, contains gold within its density, and through the patient heat of awareness, the raw substance of experience is refined into wisdom. Jung's contribution was not to explain away the stone, but to restore its dignity. He showed that the ancient work had never ceased. It had only changed its language. The crucible had moved inward, and the goal, as ever, was the same: to make the unconscious conscious, to bring light to what sleeps, to reconcile heaven and earth within the human frame. He once wrote, "The gold which the alchemist sought is not of this world, yet it is found in this world, in every act of courage, in every shadow faced, in every reconciliation achieved." The stone is psychological, but it is also spiritual. It belongs to both because it mediates between them. It is the bridge across the abyss, the link between what is and what could be. And in that link, the eternal work continues, not in secret chambers, but in every human heart that consents to the fire. 3. As above, so below, the reflection between self and cosmos. If the stone is the symbol of wholeness, then its foundation is correspondence. The emerald tablet of Hermes declared it in the first age of writing. That which is below is like that which is above, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. Every alchemist, mystic, and physicist since has been translating that same sentence. It is the recognition that the laws of the cosmos are not foreign to us. They are written in our very structure. The spiral of galaxies mirrors the spiral of our DNA. The rhythm of breath echoes the tides of the moon. The cycle of seasons repeats in our moods, our relationships, our years of growth and decay. We are not living in the universe. We are the universe remembering itself as human. To practice alchemy, therefore, is to cooperate with this correspondence consciously. When you balance opposites within, you balance the field around you. When you bring light to your own shadow, the collective shadow lessens. The stone, as Jung said, is both the microcosmic and macrocosmic man, the point where the part understands itself as the whole. This principle has implications far beyond the spiritual. It means that the inner work of integrity, compassion, and clarity is not separate from the healing of the world. Environmental balance, social harmony, and peace are extensions of the same law that governs psychic unity. You cannot destroy the planet without first having declared war on your own nature. You cannot love yourself truly without learning to love what is made of the same matter. The stone teaches that redemption is holographic. To heal one is to heal all. It invites us to move beyond the illusion of separation and to act as custodians of correspondence. Each thought is an act of creation, each emotion a ripple across the field. When we purify our perception, we participate in the cosmos, remembering its own coherence. Thus, as above, so below is not just a mystical phrase, it is the architecture of reality. It means that consciousness is both cause and mirror. When you hold a flame of understanding, the stars themselves seem to respond, because both obey the same mathematics of light. The alchemists knew this instinctively. Their goal was not to conquer nature, but to converse with it, to align human effort with cosmic rhythm. The modern world forgets this law in its obsession with control, but the great work reminds us that mastery without correspondence is tyranny. To transform without humility is to distort. The true alchemist transforms in harmony with the whole, not against it. His stone shines because it reflects, not because it dominates. In this way, the stone becomes the moral compass of the age, a reminder that inner clarity and outer responsibility are the same operation seen from different sides. The alchemist does not flee the world. He redeems it by redeeming himself, and the light he uncovers within becomes the light by which the world can see itself anew. 4. Conclusion. The stone within the flame. At the end of every alchemical text, when the diagrams fade and the symbols rest, one phrase appears again and again. The work is accomplished, but the wise know this does not mean finished, it means begun. For to find the stone is to remember what you always were, consciousness refining itself through the experiment of existence. The world is not a prison, it is the laboratory of the divine. Every moment is an operation, every life an alembic, every breath an exchange of heaven and earth. The stone does not free you from being human, it sanctifies it. It reveals that the mundane is miraculous when seen without distortion. Washing a cup, planting a seed, holding another's grief. These acts become rituals of transmutation when performed with awareness. The work is not in monasteries, it is in marketplaces, in conversations, in the stillness between heartbeats. The philosopher's stone is not found, it is remembered. It waits in the silence after surrender, in the clarity that follows confusion, in the tenderness that survives despair. It is the light that does not announce itself, only deepens whatever it touches. And perhaps this is the final secret. The stone was never separate from the fire. The same force that burns also blesses. The same process that dissolves also reveals. Fire and stone, seeker and sought, are two names for one eternal dialogue, the universe recognizing itself through consciousness. To carry the stone is not to claim mastery, but to live as a participant in the sacred equilibrium. It is to wake each day and tend your small flame as a priest of the cosmic hearth. It is to walk through impermanence without fear, because you have seen that nothing real can be lost, only transmuted. So, apprentice of the flame, remember, the stone is not your possession, it is your participation. When your heart becomes transparent, when your presence harmonizes rather than competes, when your truth neither wounds nor hides, the stone is alive in you. And when your time comes to hand the work forward, do not preach. Simply live as proof that transformation is possible. The universe learns from example, not decree. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the fire refines, the world awakens. The great work continues, and so do you.